We welcome our viewers here in Nigeria and around the world. Let's start the week with Business Morning, as always here on Channels Television, Nigeria's news leader. I am Bosin Amofaye. A very busy business calendar week starts today with a two-day Nigeria Economic Summit 2019 edition taking place in Abuja with a focus on Nigeria 2050, shifting gears as Nigeria looks to 400 million population by the year 2050. That's the big story for the big boys on the field of business and economy starting the week. Meantime, a special cabinet meeting is holding today to put final touches to Budget 2020 draft, which will be presented to the National Assembly tomorrow, Tuesday, by the President. All cabinet ministers are expected to be in attendance at today's Federal Executive Council meeting. That's one big news. Also, meantime, President Buhari's second-term Budget 2020 kickoff. We've got a special programming for you viewers here in Nigeria and around the world. Tomorrow we'll start our live coverage at about 1:30 local time. We'll have our correspondence report at the National Assembly. Then we'll have a panel of economists and others who will drill down on the President's presentation tomorrow in Lagos, in Abuja, our two studios. We're opening the studios at 1:30 in the afternoon here on Channels Television. You don't want to miss this tomorrow. It's a big day. President Buhari's second term is kicking off with Budget 2020, and we're covering that end-to-end tomorrow from 1:30 local time. Meantime, Dr. Jumoke Oduwole's Enabling Business Secretariat is teeing off his fourth quarter subnational tour in Lagos. That's on Thursday this week, looking to engage state governments on how to ease doing business across the subnational levels. This is a roadshow, and it's kicking off at Nigeria's economic and financial epicenter, and that's Lagos State. And start today, a coalition of anti-corruption civil society organizations are holding a summit or a stakeholders conference also in the city today on the state of Nigerian ports and terminals via a new 61-page survey report on standard operating procedures. The every discussion around the state of ports and terminals will be taking place downtown today. But it's a bit of a quiet week on our economic data calendar. But from Monday next week, you need to watch out for September Consumer Price Index and inflation data from the Statistics Office. We also have petrol and gas prices data for the month of September, as well as the state's nominal GDP data, selected food prices, and transport fare watch for the month we finish in September. All of that from Monday, October the 14th. Yesterday evening, President Buhari nominates Dr. Akinwumi Adesina for a second term of 5 years as the president of the EFDB Group. Adesina thanked Mr. President for the nomination for his re-election bid as the head of the DFI. Dr. Adesina says Mr. President is, quote, such a wonderful champion and supporter, end of quote, for the EFDB top job. Dr. Adesina is seeking another 5 years for re-election as a president of the EFDB Group, headquartered in Abidjan, the Ivorian capital. Talking about our market street, debt management September Naira bond market offering was overbought by 61 billion. That was last month, while the market is now awaiting the fourth quarter issuance calendar starting October, with dealers, analysts, and others tying in the Budget 2020 details into what will be the key issues for the market this month, and we count down to the final 3 months of 2019. On Friday, Nigeria joined the rest of the world when it comes to financial market sustainability. How do we bring sustainability to the financial market? That was the piece in which the FMDQ Securities Exchange on Friday brought everyone together around the table to discuss this as we flagged off the Lagos Financial Center for Sustainability. You've heard that in the news already. But let's drill down a little bit on the regulatory side. What is the SEC that has the overarching responsibility for the market? Think about financial sustainability in Nigeria. Let's take a listen to Mary Odok, who's the Acting Director General at the SEC, and Dr. Doyin Salami, who is a member of the Economic Advisory Council and adjunct professor at the Lagos Business School.
The concept of sustainability is also very relevant in Nigeria. In the recent release of 2019 Sustainable Development Report, Nigeria is ranked 159th position out of the 162 UN member countries on its SDG index. The breakdown on the report indicated that Nigeria gathered an average score of 46.4, which was also the ECOWAS regional average of 53.8, which is also below the ECOWAS regional average of 53.8. The report also indicated that Nigeria performed well in SDG 12, which is responsible consumption and production, SDG 13, climate action, SDG 14, life below water, and SDG 15, life on land. However, a deeper analysis indicated that the performance was mainly due to our low level of consumption and industrialization. In fact, for SDG 14, on a scale of 1 to 100, on the metric for clean waters, the result indicated a score of only 28.1, thus highlighting a growing failure in taking adequate care of our aquatic environment. Of particular concern is the worsening hunger levels, malnutrition, and poverty. These enormous gaps represent opportunities in themselves for private sector partnerships and investments. Partnerships and investments that actually address the fundamental needs of the people, and in so doing ensure competitive returns for the investors through sustainable investments. The 2019 SDG report calls for urgent and concerted efforts, especially in the areas of education, clean water and sanitation, industry, innovation, and infrastructure. We can only create jobs, reduce hunger, and end poverty when the private sector partners with the government to stimulate investment in the aforementioned areas. On our part, the Securities and Exchange Commission remains a strong advocate for the promotion of infrastructural development through sustainable financing. We believe, and very strongly too, that the huge budget deficit and infrastructural gap in the country can be financed by harnessing resources available from sustainability finance, investors, and interest groups around the world. There are tremendous opportunities in the areas of power generation and transmission, rail transportation, housing, agriculture, and water, among others, where sustainable financing can be an avenue for the private sector to partner with governments in the overall drive for prosperity and economic development in this country. The federal government, through the Debt Management Office, has led the way in Africa in this regard by issuing the first sovereign green bond in December 2017. It has since been followed with another 15 billion issuance in June this year, specifically to fund renewable energy, afforestation, and transportation. Following approval of the Commission's rules on green bonds in October 2018, 2 issuances have been made by North-South Power Services Limited and Access Bank PLC, worth 8.56 billion and 15 billion respectively, to finance various infrastructural projects in the power, water, and agriculture sectors of the Nigerian economy. The onus therefore lies with all of us in the financial services industry to work together and continue to expand these issuances by locating a need and fashioning appropriate sustainable financing products to meet them. In addition, the Securities and Exchange Commission led the creation of sustainable finance guidelines and disclosure requirements for capital market operators. The guidelines, which will be rolled out before the end of the year, were developed in line with the Nigerian Sustainable Finance Principles adopted by the Financial Services Regulatory Council Committee.
When you look at sustainability and sustainable finance, there's a whole range of definitions. At the narrowest level, it's simply integrating environmental and social governance factors into financial decisions. At its broadest is where it's about a financial system that is not just stable, but tackles long-term social environmental issues, especially around sustainable employment, the financing of retirement, technology, innovation. Whether we like it or not, at the end of the day, what that most broad of the definitions is saying is that at the end of the day, all investment will have to become sustainable. And when you look at it, the opportunities are wild, at least on the African continent. Yeah, it's a whole load of stuff, whether it's smart housing, whether it is education, whether it's healthcare, whether it's transport, whether it's energy. It's a whole host of things. But if you just look at that figure there, $783 billion is what is projected to be Africa's need between now, well, up until 2030. Up until 2030. $750 billion is what is projected to be Africa's need. And what you are also seeing is a rapid increase in the size of assets under management of investments that are classified as being sustainable. And as I said, the direction where everything is headed is simply all investment becomes sustainable. And when you look at Nigeria, $92 billion is what is projected to be our need. And so, key question then becomes, how do we find this? But what are the key areas? And you can see His Excellency laid emphasis, I think, on the challenge of waste management in Lagos. Now, that is not a new challenge, but it's a challenge that must be resolved very, very quickly. I was being shown a video piece, I don't know where they got it from, but I think it's been circulating, about the 6 cities that are, that are threatened. Now, for those of us who live on Lagos mainland, it's okay, we don't have. Oh, no. The islanders will come to rent from us, we are waiting. But the point is Lagos is this 6th city in that order of cities that are threatened with sinking, the activity of oceans and erosion. And so, managing that really is a major challenge. And as this also shows, there are challenges around waste management, there are challenges around transportation, but let me also quickly put this in a slightly different context. Challenges represent opportunity. And so the size of these potential investments represents the kind of opportunities that Nigeria and indeed Lagos will have to deal with. These are some of the targets that we are, as a nation, trying to achieve. 45% emission reduction, 2% energy efficiency improvement on an annual basis, 40 gigawatts of renewable and conventional power by 2020, and an end to glass flaring by 2030. Now, all of these are going to require significant investment that will enable their attainment.
Speaking to sustainable finance at the FMDQ Securities Exchange event on Friday, some of the big names there are the event bringing Nigeria in line with the rest of the global market community when it comes to financial sustainability. And of course, you heard earlier from the head of the SEC that the regulator would bring on stream guidelines for sustainable financial markets in Nigeria before the end of 2019. Put that on your calendar. But let's check in with the market. Last week, we had a public holiday, and then the market was left for about 4 days. Then, of course, we had the central bank coming in with a sledgehammer. 12 banks were penalized for their failure to meet the 60% loan-to-deposit ratio deadline of September the 30th. They were penalized 499.175 billion naira, which was their money being taken out into their cash reserve requirements, with the central bank sterilized money until they meet the new higher threshold of 65% loan-to-deposit ratio by the end of December. So the banking stocks went down about 3%, a little over 3% last week. Let's bring you some of the market number reviewing the week we just finished. 4 trading day across board. And the all-share index, as I said on Friday, fell through the 27,000 psychological level. We lost 2.5%, 2.48% to be specific. In the week, we lost our 27,000 last week, just down to 26,987. The market value, however, tried to hold it steady around the figure you see there, 13.137 trillion naira. In terms of volume, it was a very small week in terms of size of total volume of shares, less than 1 billion for north of 9 billion naira, but in 12,000 transactions. The banking sector lost nearly 4% on that news that came in on Wednesday, followed by the consumer goods, 4.9%, much deeper haircut than the banking sector. Insurance sidesteps their cousins, the banks, by 5.7%. That sector is moving on with its own recapitalization program, and some of the news around that sector, a few of them holding extraordinary general meetings this month, and others bringing in new monies, a right offer. You heard early part of last week, the sector regulator, NICOM, giving a state of those compliance, those who have submitted their recapitalization plans, and those who've got to go back home and redust their programs and resubmit them before the deadline, June 2020. Industrial goods was about 0.1%, not enough to lift the market. Oil and gas sank 2.25%. So if we put all of that together, that gives you nearly 2.5% haircut for the week. Now look at the NASD. Over-the-counter market. Yes, that's it there. You can see the unlisted securities index still below the 700 index reading, which you lost. Then the market cap trying to hold it steady. Where are we as far as the transactions concerned are the NASD over-the-counter unlisted securities market? There you're looking at the volume of 214,000 for the week for 14.85 million in 22 transactions. And that's quite a very small story there for the NASD. This week is a full week, and we'll see how this will pace out. But let's wrap this up for you on the at the debt markets, where you have the Naira bond. You heard earlier, everyone is looking out for the fourth quarter debt offering calendar by the Debt Management Office. We expect that to be out anytime soon, but the last auction for September was oversubscribed, 160.9 billion against about 100 billion that the DMO placed on offer. That was oversubscription. That tells you the appetite for Naira papers. On Friday, you're looking at the trading day for last week, the last trading day, the four most actively traded papers. That's your 26th April 2049, a long-dated paper, 27.81 billion naira, a bit of active coming back in terms of active trading. It was a lot more active if you flip over and look at the treasury bills market. That's giving you 142 billion naira in 407 transactions. But again, if you look at the discount highs, which gives you an idea of where the yield curve really stands, that shows you that treasuries maturing a year from now, 13.39%, 17th October this year, 12.45%, 7th November this year, 12.7% and 12.25%. Discount high for treasuries maturing 26th of December 2019. Investors, you see, they're placing a lot more in the treasury bills maturing 1st of October next year, 29 transactions. So that's just a bit of a summary of the market for you for last week, last trading day. But a lot actually happened last week. One of it is the creative industry. The central bank, the bankers committee, they're coming together and they got the executive branch to sign off on a new 22 billion naira creative industry. For those of you who are doing movies, technology, fashion, and music, well, this is good news for everyone. But how will it work? And what did you miss in the news? We'll talk about that when we come back. Getting creative with the creative industry. That's what we're talking about when we return.